want to invite Ari to bring us to the Parsha of the week. And then I want him to share what we did this last week at the farm, which is just a manifestation of prophecy in reality. It is a manifestation of the spiritual coming into the physical. And it's just so beautiful to see our mountains come to life. And so here we are. Ari Abramowitz, take it away.
Shalom, my friends. In this week's Torah portion, we encounter one of the deep mysteries of the Torah, the tribe of Amalek. This is a nation which stands out among all the nations for their pure, unadulterated, visceral hatred of the Jewish people. There have been many nations which have persecuted Israel over the generations, but in only one was the hatred so pure that the Torah commands us to wipe out their name and never forget. And who is this nation? Well, Amalek was Esau's grandson, who grew up learning and internalizing Esau's pathological hatred of Jacob for his entire life. Agag, the king who Saul failed to kill as Samuel commanded, was an Amalekite. Haman, from the Purim story, who dedicated his life to genocide of the Jews, was descended from Agag the Amalekite, and hence an Amalekite himself. And Hitler was an Amalekite too. A great example of this can be seen when Hitler, at a pivotal turning point in World War II, decided that rather than devoting the remainder of his military forces to defeating the Allies and potentially winning the war, he decided to focus his energies on murdering every last Jew, even if it meant losing World War II. Now let that sink in. He preferred to lose the war as long as there was not one Jew left alive at the end, because his real war was against the Jews before all else. The name Iran comes from Aryan, and as anyone can see from their unwavering obsession to destroy Israel, at the very least their leadership are said to be Amalekite as well. When the nation of Israel had left Egypt, the Israelites fight a war against Amalek in the desert. When Moses holds his hands up to heaven, Israel is victorious. And when his hands weary and fall, Amalek is victorious. An early hint that war with this nation in specific is a spiritual war more than anything else. And being that war with Amalek is so deeply spiritual, there is much that we can learn from it about our lives and our walk with God, even today, particularly today. So let's look at the verses in this week's Torah portion in chapter 25, verses 17 through 19, in the book of Deuteronomy, of course. Remember what Amalek did to you by the way, when you came forth out of Egypt, how he met you by the way and struck at your rear, all who were feeble, lagging behind you, when you were faint and weary, he did not fear God. Therefore it shall be, when the Lord your God has given you rest from all your enemies around, in the land with which the Lord your God gives to you for an inheritance to possess, that you shall blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heaven, you shall not forget. Now, let's first look at the general context. Israel has emerged from Egypt, thoroughly defeating the greatest superpower of the world with miraculous divine intervention, ranging from the nature-defying 10 plagues to the parting of the sea, in plain view of the entire world. The nations of the world were terrified. They were quaking in their boots. Their hearts were melting. For it was not just the nation of Israel that they feared, but more so the God of Israel. No one dared attack Israel other than the nation of Amalek, who attacked in the most cowardly way by attacking the weak stragglers, paving the way for other nations to attack, and removing much of the awe and the luster and the mystique surrounding Israel. And who did they attack? The weary and the worn out, who were lagging behind, as the verse tells us. Those who were weak and lagging behind, they posed no danger. The hatred you could already see is groundless and irrational. Now our sages teach us a lesson so profound from this attack that its wisdom resonates deeply until today. They explain that the exodus from Egypt should have taught us that our victory, our blessing, and our success is not due to our own might or our own strength, but due to God's blessing and protection, and that God blesses us when we stand together, united as brothers, placing our fear in Him. So the real question is, why would we allow the weak to straggle behind? If we understood that our strength and our blessing comes from our fear of God and our love for each other, then we would go as slow as we need to go to make sure that our weak are not straying behind us, but they are amongst us, in our midst. It's only when we're trying to outpace our pursuers, when we fear man, then we start moving too fast for our weakest and most vulnerable, letting them stray behind. Survival of the fittest is what Amalek is all about, and having even a faint semblance of that quality leaves us vulnerable to their toxic hatred of everything holy. And only because we allowed for our weak to straggle behind, that is what makes us vulnerable to their attack. If we went as slow as we needed to go to make sure that the weak stragglers were loved, protected, and cared for, that they weren't straggling behind, but in our midst, then we wouldn't have been vulnerable to the attack of Amalek at all. Meaning on some level, Amalek is a gauge of our own level of faith, and whether in truth we fear God or we fear man. Amalek is the numerical equivalent of Safek, which means doubt. And our sages tell us that Amalek is the human embodiment of doubt in the world. And as Isaiah tells us in chapter 43, Atem Edai, you are my witnesses, said the Lord, and my servants whom I have chosen, that you may know and believe in me, and understand that I am he. Before me there was no God formed, neither shall there be after me. That is the true battle against Amalek. It is the battle against fear and against doubt. It is no less than the true battle of light against darkness, the light of Israel against the darkness of Amalek. And so, Hashem, here we are, turning our hearts to you. We find ourselves in times of tremendous instability, doubt, and confusion. Please, Hashem, please allow us not to fear man, but to fear you. Allow us to place our faith in you and your strength. Strengthen our hearts, strengthen our resolve to be beacons of light and hope during these dark times, because it is only in you that we have hope at all. We're awaiting your redemption, and we're awaiting the beautiful light that awaits all of mankind at the end of this darkness. And so, my friends, before I turn it back to Jeremy, I want to share with all of you a very exciting development from here at the Ari Farm, which to me is a spice cart and a beam of light piercing through the doubt and confusion of this world. I recorded this for all of you, my beloved friends, this week, so you could really be here with us. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to our holy friends in the fellowship. So I just had to share this moment with you because it is really monumental. It's historic. I feel like not only for us, but for the entire Jewish people. 4 years ago, we came out here and we planted these vineyards, and we didn't really know what we were doing, but we knew it was the right thing to do. And we planted these vineyards, and now 4 years later, we have all these volunteers that have come out 5:30 in the morning and are harvesting these grapes. Just to show you what we're talking about right here. This is the first amount of delicious grapes, literally the fruits of our labor. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz. And this is going to be our wine. And it's monumental, it's historic, not only for us, but for all of Israel, because this is the mountains of Amos. This is the mountains of the prophet Amos. This is where he had his vision. And this is where he said, V'shafti shvut ami, I'll return the exiles of my people. Uvanu arim neshamot v'natu kramim v'shatut yanam, and they'll rebuild desolation, and they'll plant vineyards and drink their wine. They'll plant gardens and eat their fruit. And I will plant them upon their land, and they'll never be uprooted again. And so that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at vineyards. We're about to drink our wine, please God. All above the vineyards. You see those cardboards sticking out of the mountain? All of that is fruit trees, thousands of fruit trees. Just like the prophet Amos said, we have Hershey here that has come out to help harvest these grapes. Hershey, why'd you come out here?
Honestly, I just wanted to have a really authentic experience of cutting grapes. It's been so long since I've done something like that, and to be a part of this specific vineyard is just a very, very special thing.
Well, thank you for waking up early and coming out here.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you. So I wanted to share this with all of you because it's really a big moment, and you're a big part of what we're doing here. So shalom, my friends.